Russia was largely unsuccessful in messing with the actual vote tallies of our presidential election. But a Republican-led Senate committee and 17 U.S. intelligence agencies unanimously concluded Russia was trying to get Donald Trump elected, and importantly, they were successful in manipulating the way American voters think. That danger has only grown over the past 4 years as Russia has succeeded in its disinformation campaign spread all over Americans' Facebook pages and Twitter feeds.
In his book, Rigged America, Russia and 100 Years of Covert Electoral Interference, David Scheimer casts aside partisan politics to show that Russian intrusion can harm Democrats and Republicans alike with the goal of undermining our democracy. He's a global fellow at the Wilson Center and an associate fellow at Yale. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
So you're saying this dates back long before 2016. This is something that Russia had been trying to do for years, pre-computer.
So that's absolutely right. What I show in my book, and the purpose of my book, is to restore history to the subject of covert interference in foreign elections. I show how the Soviet Union actually was interfering in elections all over the world back during the interwar period between the First and Second World Wars. I show how the KGB and the CIA went toe-to-toe in elections all over the world during the Cold War, and how Putin's Russia is again today using the internet to interfere in elections on a global basis, turbocharging ideas that have long existed to manipulate electoral processes not only in America but across Europe and elsewhere.
You included the CIA there. You're saying America was doing that too.
So there was several decades during the Cold War where the CIA viewed electoral interference as a useful weapon in helping to contain communism, where the CIA would often support centrist candidates, whereas the KGB would often support leftist or communist ones. And for my book, I interviewed 8 former CIA directors, many more CIA officers, and they were readily, comfortable talking about those operations and the reasons why it was viewed as justified at the time to engage in these sorts of electoral operations in competition with the Soviet KGB.
So is their goal simply chaos, which seems easy enough to achieve, or is it more than that? Do they still want a particular party or a particular person? And if so, what is it that they want?
So I would say that the Russian objective has evolved, where during the Cold War, the Soviet Union sought to support leftist candidates in furtherance of an ideology, whereas what my research really laid out is that what Vladimir Putin now wants is not to spread some sort of ideology. He believes he's locked in a power struggle, not an ideological struggle with the West, so he's been supporting authoritarian-minded and divisive candidates across the world in order to divide democracies from within and from one another. And as for America specifically, he wants Donald Trump to win. He also wants American democracy to descend into chaos. So those are his dual objectives, and how he actually seeks to achieve those objectives in the coming days is something that I think our law enforcement is and should be readily watching out for, and it's something that I'm worried about.
How good have we gotten at clamping down on any, any rigging of elections at this point, either by Russia or anyone else? Has there been any fail-safes put into place since 2016?
So I think there are some ways in which we're more fortified and there are some ways in which we're less. I would say that in the last 4 years, we're more fortified because our intelligence community is very much aware of this threat. DHS has been working with states to shore up their systems. Social media companies have been looking for these covert networks to take down. And I think the media is more well prepared for some sort of anonymous document release. So in that bucket, all for the better. But I would say we're more vulnerable for 2 reasons. The first being the coronavirus, which has sowed so much doubt about the stability of our voting processes that so many millions of Americans are questioning whether their ballots will actually be counted fairly. And for Russia, which specializes in taking advantage of pre-existing weaknesses and vulnerabilities, that pre-existing doubt presents an opportunity to sow more chaos. The second reason I would say we're less fortified is because the president now is Donald Trump. And whereas Barack Obama, as I lay out in my book, tried to defend against Russia's operation in the summer and fall of 2016, President Obama has actually solicited rather than sought to defend Russian interference since entering into the American political arena in 2015.
Yeah. So, David, I don't know if you saw Social Dilemma, and they talk about how the social media companies have these algorithms that make people who want stuff on the right get the right, those on the left get the left, and they don't talk to each other. And I'm wondering, how much responsibility do social media companies have for doing this? It's exactly what Russia wants.
So that's extremely important because the gold standard when it comes to covert electoral interference operations is to target voters based on who they are and what they believe. That's what the KGB long tried to achieve during the Cold War, but without the internet, it was very difficult to do so. Targeting was much more limited, and it often came down to just targeting a few specific individuals. What social media has allowed is for targeting to be blown up at scale, where now, because people self-organize into, as you said, these homogenous groups that just regurgitate content that they already believe in, that makes it so that there are really ripe targets or platforms to target voters. Because if you post content to a, let's say, pro-immigration page, you're naturally going to be attracting an audience that has pro-immigration biases. So social media opens opportunities not only to reach tens of millions of Americans, as Russia did in 2016, but also opportunities to reach Americans based, again, on their pre-existing inclinations, interests, and values.
Well, the book is called Rigged: America, Russia, and 100 Years of Covert Electoral Interference. You can follow David Shimer on Twitter. Thanks for joining us, David.
Thanks, David.
Thanks very much for having me.